أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. نوروا مجلسكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. ترى
کیا دیکھتی ہے صغرا زینب کے آنسوں میں، کیا دیکھتی ہے صغرا زینب کے آنسوں میں، منظر ہے کربلا کا زینب کے آنسوں میں، برچھی کا زخم تازہ تا زندگی رہے گا، برچھی کا زخم تازہ تا زندگی رہے گا، اکبر کا ہے کلیجہ زینب کے آنسوں میں، صغرا نظر اٹھاؤ قاسم کا حال دیکھو، صغرا نظر اٹھاؤ قاسم کا حال دیکھو، بکھرا پڑا ہے لاشا زینب کے آنسوں میں، اے دیدائے تصور تجھ کو دکھائی دے گا، اے دیدائے تصور تجھ کو دکھائی دے گا، چھوٹا سا ایک جھولا زینب کے آنسوں میں، عباس کے بریدہ ہاتھوں کی داستاں ہے، عباس کے بریدہ ہاتھوں کی داستاں ہے، بہتا ہے غم کا دریا زینب کے آنسوں میں، زندان شام میں ہے چھوٹی سی قبر لیکن، زندان شام میں ہے چھوٹی سی قبر لیکن، موجود ہے سکینہ زینب کے آنسوں میں، ظلم و ستم کا منظر سب دیکھ لے مدینہ، ظلم و ستم کا منظر سب دیکھ لے مدینہ، है शाम और कूफा ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में क्या देखती है सुगरा ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में मंजर है करबला का ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में। सलवात।
My dear brothers and sisters, عظم الله أجوركم جميعا. عظم الله أجوركم وأجورنا بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام، وجعلنا الله وإياكم من الطالبين بثأره مع وليه الإمام المهدي عجل الله فرجه الشريف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, we are in aftermath. Today is the 11th, and we are in aftermath of Ashura. And usually, like you see, the number of the people will be like less, But the true tragedy of Ahlul Bayt is to start afternoon of Ashura. Because that's what Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi afdal salatu wasalam said. The true tragedy, what hurt Ahlul Bayt more than even Shahadat Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, taking Lady Zainab and all the Sabaya, they take them as a prisoner and parade them in Kufa and everywhere. That, it's a very difficult. They said, one speaker, he said one time he's been invited to the Marja house, and there is a 3 Marja sitting there, all Maraja. They're sitting there, and they ask him to recite, Aza, Majlis Aza Imam al-Hussein. So he was speaking about the aftermath, and he was not speaking about Musibah, he was speaking about historical fact and sequences, and he was saying that, they took Zainab alayhi salam, and they take Zainab to Ibn Ziyad, and Zainab entered to the Ibn Ziyad palace. He said, I said that, and those 3 Maraja', they throw their amama on the ground, and they start to hit themselves so bad, and cry so loud. I could not complete the majlis. I stopped, and it took them 5-10 minutes crying and beating themselves, and said, I could not finish the majlis. Then he said, later on, one of them, he said, you don't understand that, someone like Ibn Ziyad, which is, they call Ziyad ibn Abi, because there is a 5-6 man fighting who's his father. So he's a no one. And they bring Zainab alayhi salam, the daughter of Muhammad, as a prisoner, and they bring her as a prisoner to Ibn Ziyad. He said, you don't understand how big is this, what kind of crime, what kind of a tragedy this, to bring Zainab alayhi salam as a prisoner to Ibn Ziyad. It said this is great. And so we tonight, and tomorrow, we are talking about that. And we're going to keep probably talking until the 14th of Imam al-Hussein alayhi afdal salat wa salam, inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, those who came tonight. And inshallah we'll be here also tomorrow to do the burial of Imam al-Hussein Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salat wa salam. Tonight Hajj Hadi will do a little different. So as I mentioned to you, he will do part of his lecture. The first part he will focus on the lecture, but the second part, half of the lecture, he will focus on the QA. And either you write the question and you give it to us and we pass it like to the Hajj, or basically you can say the question. If you want the speaker, we can the mic, we can give the mic, and or like in any method or way you like to convey your question. Don't be shy. Say your question, and if we know, we know. If we don't, of course we don't. But we'll find the answer, inshallah, to you. And so that's inshallah the for today. And starting the coming Saturday, we're gonna start the first majlis for the Arba'in. Inshallah, we're gonna do like each Saturday. We have majlis for Imam al-Hussein, alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, inshallah. I heard like there is a food being sponsored for tomorrow. So tomorrow the food is sponsored, and so please don't bring food, don't cook food. Someone who sponsor for the food tomorrow, inshallah. And with your salawat, we receive Hajj Hadi at Tabrizi ma'a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي الأولى أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق والنور أرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبنا وسيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. أما بعد، قال الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to begin in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. For without His kindness and without His mercy, an opportunity such as this would not have been presented to us, and more specifically, it would not have been presented to me, where I would have this occasion or this invite to come to this community on this side of the States. As you know, for those that don't know, I'm from Arizona originally. And the series of events that would transpire that would allow me to have this opportunity are very strange. The events that were leading up to this Muharram were interesting, and I can't say that it was an accident. I cannot dismiss it as an accident. The person that was supposed to come from the UK, and he was a dear friend of mine. In fact, he's someone I consult with quite often, a very knowledgeable and learned person, Sayyid Ali Khalkhali. And his visa situation didn't map out, or it didn't turn out well. So on 10 days' notice, I got a call. And this specific lecture series, the way I built it up, had been inside me or in my heart to say for a very, very long time. But as you know, with COVID and the locking down of the mosques, the end of Majalis, everybody thought it was the end of the world or some sort of zombie apocalypse was looming among us. They thought 20% of the world population was going to disappear, and all of a sudden the Shafa of Imam Hussein was out the window. Nobody had faith anymore that Imam Hussein was the best cure. I'm not saying this mosque was part of that, but it seemed at the time almost like I wasn't going to be invited anymore. So again, I can't thank this community enough. Not only was this an opportunity for me, but I learned a lot from the multiple educated people that I've had the chance to speak with to the humble servants of Imam al-Hussein that dedicate their time year after year to make sure these events happen. From people who donate and sponsor, from the people that work in the parking lot, from the people that go in the kitchen and make sure we have food in the name of Imam al-Hussein every night. This food in itself is a cure for many souls. It cures you spiritually without you realizing it, because the intention behind making that food carries the energy, the benevolent energy of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, who purifies our hearts year after year as we go about our busy days and busy lives. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to this beautiful community. I have never had the opportunity of being part of a community for this long and not hearing something bad about another person. Every community I visited, this is Allah as my witness. By the time I get to the 6th or 7th night, someone's heart is full of someone else and they start unloading it on me, the speaker, because they need some free therapy sessions. One time I told the brother, listen, you need a psychologist. You don't need me. He said, Maku flus. He said, I don't have money. So I was trapped in the car with him for a good 2 hours. But in this community, mashallah, may Allah bless your hearts. May Allah bless all of you. Anytime I heard something about someone else, it was only good. I only heard great things about each and every one person. From the introductions I got, they said, this guy is an educated person. This is what he studied. This person is a humble. This servant gives his life for the sake of this mosque. This person has put his family on hold just to make sure you guys are educated week to week. This person taught my children the basics of ahkam that they still use to this day. SubhanAllah, what a beacon of light this community has been. And again, it has been a first for me to see a community like this. So take it from someone who has traveled from all around North America. I have spoken in Miami, Kansas, and I'm not boasting, please forgive me if it sounds that way. I have spoken in multiple mosques in Toronto. I have spoken in multiple mosques all across North America. Places you wouldn't even believe have mosques have given me the opportunity to speak there. This community is special. And so I say this from the bottom of my heart. Again, thank you for allowing me to be part of it this Muharram. Tonight I wanted to give back as much as I possibly can in my last night. This is my last night. And I don't know when I'll see you again. Inshallah sometime soon. And so in my last night, I just wanted an opportunity to offer you not only the question and answer, but before I get to the question and answer, try and give you insight as to what I use as someone who was born here, raised here, never had the privilege of moving to the Middle East to study Islam, and what tools and what foundations I use to consistently try my best. As you know, nobody has all the answers, but try my best to try and look for those key points that not only resonate with the youth, but in general. And so, as you noticed in my 12 or 10 nights that I had, I would try and poke at a lot of the ayahs that we oftentimes glaze over. And some people found that that was very interesting or moving. That's not for me. The reason why you were moved was because you were actually, for the first time for many, building a relationship with the Word of God. And our Quran is not easy. It's easy to memorize, but it's not easy to pinpoint the stories and be able to come to conclusions based on those stories. So we started from Prophet Adam, we started to Prophet Abraham, we started looking at these stories, and then we saw the importance of Imam Hussein without me even saying it. It just started naturally taking form until the 10th. So if I wanted to give you my first set of pointers is, I'll ask you if you really want to know the key principle that every single successful person has had in their life, and it might seem very simple. The key principle that will allow anything in your life to grow, whether it's Islamic knowledge, whether it's a family, whether it's a specific goal you have set in your mind, it's a generative principle. Even the these people that are the elites of the elite that dominate society, that you always Illuminati and all these people, whatever. There's not just one group. There's a bunch of elites that rule over the working class that we are. These people, if you ever see the Freemason sign with the G, some say it stands for God, but if you actually listen to some of the ex-Freemasons, they tell you the G stands for generative principle or Genesis. And they believe that the core to everything, to attaining everything, is care. If you care about anything, whether it's a seed you put in a pot and you care enough to water it, or it's a care that you put into your religion, that will grow on its own. Don't worry about the how. Don't worry about the how. It will grow. The doors will open on their own. But the first principle is you must care enough. Not care a little, care enough to know more, to want more. How could you get something you don't know or you don't care for? Have you ever seen someone saying, I got successful, but I really didn't care about success? I got all this money, but I really didn't care. No. I cared about it, but now that I have it, now I don't really care for it because I understood that there was more to life. I cared for it at some point, didn't I? And so a lot of times people associate the speaker with the content. Sometimes we look at the person who's saying it instead of what's being said. I'm here to tell you, listen to what's being said. Don't look at the speaker. Don't look at the speaker. Any speaker claiming to have some sort of ultimate truth with them in the ghaibat, take it with a grain of salt. We all make mistakes. I've made a few blunders during my lectures. Instead of Nuh, I said Abraham in one of the parts. It was just a slip of my mind because there's a tornado in my brain when I'm reciting. Or I said the Prophet sallallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala. I said in one of the nights, I made a blunder. I remember I was watching it and I'm like, oh, was there a time skip or something? Did the camera skip? And then I looked at my face. I said, nope, that was not a skip. I made a big mistake in the middle of my talk. So don't look at who, look at what. And so a lot of times people ask me, well, what made you care? And why do you do what you do? What makes you different? And I don't usually like to say it because it doesn't really matter what I do and why I do it. But if it gives you a little bit of motivation, if it makes you feel like, oh, I can see where he's coming from, or if my motivation can affect any of you, I'll tell you my story very briefly before I go into the Q&A. I was brought up in an Islamic school from junior kindergarten. I didn't care about Islam. I didn't hate it. And I knew about Islam enough to say, I'm going to do the bare minimum just to get to heaven. I don't want to go to Jahannam. Imam Ali would later read that such a person is living a life of a slave. He prays to Allah so he doesn't go to hell. So then, as I would grow throughout the years, I didn't have the most pleasant experience in Islamic school. Certain teachers were pretty mean to me, actually. My Quran teacher, unfortunately, traumatized me for the first 10 years of my life because I was Iranian and I would recite Quran with a Farsi accent because my mother taught me Quran. So I said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim instead of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So my Quran teacher is like, look at this guy. If any Arab was sitting here, he wouldn't understand a word you're saying. She said that once after I practiced for a few hours to recite that classes. So, life experiences happen. It's not traumatic now, looking back. But at the time, to be quite frank, I didn't care. I was just going to class because I had to go to class. I had to memorize what I had to memorize. And again, that generative principle was not there. And you can't force someone to care. I can teach you as much as you want, but I can't make you care. It's like the saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, or you can't force it to drink. If it doesn't want to drink, khalas, that's it. So I would then graduate, and I would leave Islamic school at the age of 14 and go to public high school, which is like, oh my goodness, what is this world about? Astaghfirullah. Oh, drugs and relationships and social media was brand new back then. Facebook was brand new back then. And, everybody's posting their feelings online, and, smartphones were still not out, but they were coming out slowly. The iPhone had just been announced when I was in grade 9. Nobody really had one. And so I would go through high school, and I would make friends. And the friends I had were not very religious. Now, throughout this time, I never abandoned prayer because, again, I was always scared enough that I'm going to go to hell if I stop praying. So sometimes the fear, cracks you into... Alhamdulillah, because of that, I was never invited to parties, or I was never invited to drugs, because they still saw me as some sort of crazy religious guy, even though I just prayed and that was it. Halal and haram, Ramadan fasting, basics. I didn't know anything. If you ask me the difference between Shia, Sunni, I don't know anything. Ask me the difference between Sayyidah Zainab and Bibi Fatima. Aren't they the same? I don't know. What's going on here? So now it's my grade 12 senior year, and we have to change cities. And I go from a school that has a lot of Middle Easterners to a school 2 hours away with no Middle Easterners, just straight up Canadians. And and at that time, Muslims were called terrorists quite often. So I had a little stubble going on. Look at this hairy terrorist in class and all this. Anyways, during grade 12, I remember I was sitting one day in a cafeteria, and I had this off period for 2 hours a day. And this is what changed. And I said it earlier, in one moment, everything can change. Allah can change you in a moment. You can make 1,000 bad decisions, and if Allah wills it, one good decision will change the outcome, like Hur. And you can make 1,000 good decisions. If one moment you err, you'll lose all the hard work. It is all with Allah. So tawakkul is the most important thing. Of course, it is the prayer of your parents that guides you to this day. It is the prayer of those who love you as well, that you remain part of this community. In any case, I was sitting alone, and I used to sit in a cafeteria and listen to music because I had no friends. It was grade 12, and everybody who was going to make friends had already made friends. I was a new kid in grade 12, senior year. I didn't know anyone. Nobody wanted to talk to me. And I just sat there listening to, that dark music that everybody listens to, yeah, I'm alone. Yeah, I'm so different. Yeah. It's like you resonate to the music that makes those negative things even more, or you resonate about how you couldn't get that, that unrequited love, and the next thing was like, let's just kill ourselves, and all this dark stuff that the kids are listening to and they resonate with, unfortunately. I was listening to that, and one day I just got an email, and I had just got, at the time, the iPhone 4. The iPhone 4 was peak of technology. How many iPhones? Are we on 14 now? I feel old. 10 iPhones ago. That was my first smartphone. So smartphones aren't that bad. I was sitting there, I got an email. Someone said Ramadan lectures from 2009 or 10, and the list came up. And I was going through the list of these lectures, and I saw one. There was one like, why is pig haram? I already know that. Why is alcohol? I already know that too. And then I saw one lecture. It said, concentrating in prayer in the eyes of Imam Ali alayhi salam. I said, I never concentrate on my prayer. I did the bare minimum. I'm not going to hell. And so I said, okay. I love Imam Ali, the warrior. That's all I knew about him. He's just this really amazing character. Warrior. Terminator of the Prophet. Anyone mess with the Prophet? Zulfadar. Okay, let's go. So I downloaded it on 3G internet. And instead of listening to music for the first time, I sat there and I listened. I don't know, maybe it was my state of mind at the time being very lonely. Sometimes when you're alone, Allah wants you to be alone, Because when you're alone, you're just with Him. The distractions are gone. So I don't know if it was my state of mind. I don't know what it was. But the lecture was from the 19th of Ramadan, the striking of Imam Ali's head. He said the whole lecture, the quotes of Imam Ali, the one who's like a slave who worships God for fear of hell, the one who's a businessman who worships God for sake of heaven, and then the one who worships God because God is worthy of worship. He doesn't care if there's a heaven or a hell. And then he got into the musibah, and in that cafeteria, sitting by myself, my tears would just flow. And I had never cried before for Ahlul Bayt. It just flowed. And I remember there were kids looking at me, and I said, oh no, I look weird. So I did this and finished the lecture like that because it was so overwhelming. So from there, I listened to another lecture the next day, and a whole semester went by, and I kept listening to more because I had nothing better to do, but at the same time, I felt there was a connection between me and Imam Ali, alayhi salam. So that's where it starts, because I cared. That's it. There's no magic course. There's no university program. There's no Hausa program for you to jump into and get this knowledge I just cared. And when you care, don't worry about the how. It'll just happen on its own. So I started at the age of 18 to speak, and it's been a bumpy road. They say, well, who are you to speak? What do you know? Who's your teacher? And no matter how much you want to teach, people say, it's not what's being said, it's who's saying it. May Allah bless your community. Hajj Basim, Hajj Abu Mehdi work very hard. They go out of their way for you, and they teach. And they too, they study on their own. They work very hard. May Allah grant them a very long life for your community. So, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. And if I do what I do right now, it's because it's just a love letter to Imam Ali. Because I felt he was very alone. And if I could teach other followers of Imam Ali to honor him and defend his wilayah, that was all that brought me here. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. I got an email with really good questions that made me ask Hajj Basim and Abu Mehdi if I could do a Q&A, because these questions were very good questions about some of the topics we covered. And then I got some questions. But if there's more questions you'd like, I love the challenge. And if I don't know the answer, then I'll say, I don't know. And I'll figure it out later because I care about those questions. So the first question that I got asked is, since we have opened the doors to the topic of the multiverse and interdimensional beings, my question to you would be, were our prophets and imams interdimensional beings? Were they able to talk to jinns who are above our realm? And some prophets could speak to angels or could see them directly. And it's evident that their vessel, the human body, did not restrict them to the three-dimensional world. So that's a very good question. Well, what were they seeing? Were they seeing like us? And the question is that absolutely not. They were seeing much more than us. If they could see an angel giving revelation, or if they could hear the angel giving revelation, that's enough to say that they had access to a layer of the unseen that we can't see. Now, the prophet, more specifically, in our traditions, has an esoteric role. And esoteric means that there is a spiritual role to the prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. So typically the very cutthroat academic look to the Holy Prophet is he's this mailman who came with the Quran, and he didn't even compile it. He just said, this is it. Figure it out from here. Bismillah. And then he passed away. So that's the traditional look of the Prophet that's devoid of any guidance from the Ahlul Bayt. This is how people depicted him, unfortunately. And there's a point there where the Prophet is actually an enactment of God's will among us. You can find this in Al-Kafi, in our traditions, as the light of the Prophet, many believe was the first of all creation, and from that it expounded. In Hadith Kisa, Allah says, were it not for these five, the universe would not be worthy of creation. Because of these five lights, I allowed the creation to be created. Now, in our hadith books of both Sunni and Shia, we have moments where jinns are talking to the Prophet, and the Prophet actually makes the jinn apparent to other people, so other people are seeing it. If you're curious, there is a jinn, it's a very funny story too. There is a jinn by the name of Ham ibn Him ibn Lamis ibn Iblis. I hope he's not in this room right now. And so he actually came to the Prophet's mosque, and the people were watching, and is this hairy looking thing that just drags his feet into the mosque, and everyone is startled. And the Prophet says, calm down, he's here to see me. So the Prophet knows his role here, and there's a jinn about to talk to him. And so the jinn asks him, now in Bukhari, this is there in Sahih al-Bukhari, in the Sunni books, and the story ends here where the Prophet talks to him about something, we don't know what, and he converts Ham, the jinn, into a Muslim. In our books, in Kitab Bihar al-Anwar, the conversation is there, what happens. So he comes up to the Prophet and he says, and this actually helps answer the question for whoever asked. He says, I have a question for you, given that you're the last of the prophets. Since the beginning of the prophethood, when Adam was created, I was from the tribe of Iblis that was instructed to go and harass and bother the prophets. Since Adam was created, alayhi salam, I was supposed to go and harass him, but every time I came to Adam, I would see this light come to me. This light would give me the fear of God. I wouldn't even dare go near him. So I thought, it must be the light of the next prophet trying to protect Adam. So I waited for the next prophet, and that light showed up again, and then the next prophet, and then the next prophet. Nuh would come, Musa would come, Isa would come, and every time I'd go to these prophets, this light would come to me. So I thought, of course, it's the next prophet. Until now, Muhammad, you're the last of the prophets. And I know there's no prophet after you. Tell me, who was this light? What was this light that would protect every single one of the prophets from the darkness that I would try to befall them? The Prophet said, if you saw him, would you recognize him? He says, I've seen him all my life. There was a young man sitting next to the Holy Prophet. Now you're going to think, oh my God, what's he saying now? There's a young man sitting next to the Prophet with his head like down. You have to let me say it before you do that. Should I say it or you already know? Let's move on. So the Prophet put his hand under the chin of this young man, lifted it, and the jinn jumped. He said, who? That's him. That's him. that's been bothering me all my life, stopping me from my mission. Who is he? Rasulullah says, ذاك أخي وابن عمي ووسي ووارثي وموضع سري أبا الحسنين مولى الكونين إمام الثقلين يعصوب الدين رئيس الموحدين قائد غر المحجلين سيد المتقين أمير المؤمنين أسد الله الغالب غالب على كل غالب مظهر الأجائب علي بن أبي طالب. Now I remember I said this hadith once in 2015, and a sheikh came up to me and he said, "You said a ghulati hadith." And I said, "What the heck is a ghulati hadith?" Ghulat? What's a ghulat? So I later realized that there were extremists that would come out and say stuff like, Imam Ali is God, astaghfirullah, and he can move every particle in every single dimension at once and stuff. And so these people would be called ghulat, which means extremists. These are extremists in the religion that you should be mindful of. Now, I started getting reluctant, not knowing much about interdimensional things. I didn't know what a jinn was at the time and stuff. So I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." But given everything we've talked about thus far, this concept that Imam Ali's light and the Prophet's light were existent before they were actually in the physical state is very much possible. As you know, like the light, a God's light, He creates light from that light. All of Nur ala Nur is in the Quran, light upon light, and the verses out of my light. What was it? Mishkat, that word. So this entire concept has been in the Quran, but in that time, that Shaykh obviously dismissed this hadith. The point is that the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt occupied a position before they came into the physical. They had some light, right? They were there. They had a duty. And when they stepped into the physical world, now they were there as guides for us to comprehend and see. Now, interestingly enough, the Prophet has a famous hadith that coincides with the limitations of our outlook. He says, "Oh Ali, none have recognized you except I and Allah. Oh Ali, none have recognized me except you and Allah. Oh Ali, none have recognized Allah except you and I." So this hadith is actually a very, very strong hadith, but it's also telling us that we have yet to scratch the surface of what exactly these divine guides were. Because we have people like Muawiyah coming to power that try to pull us away from the spiritual capacity of divine guides and try to make everything very exoteric. This prophet came, gave us a Quran, and everybody's doing their best ever since. Well, all the atrocities they did, we just dismiss it as, well, there was no prophet, so we did our best. Forget about everything else. The Mongols came, destroyed the Abbasids. Ottomans came, they did their best. ISIS came, they did their best. Everybody's just fighting for this caliphate that nobody knows how it's going right now. We don't even have a caliph anymore. But everyone's just trying their best. Alhamdulillah, Brother Hadi. Everyone's trying their best in this world. Nobody has any responsibility. So, hope that helps. Now, when they step into the physical, Allah makes it clear that the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt do have ilmul ghaib. Now, to what extent do they have it? If I knew, then I would have ilmul ghaib too, wouldn't I? I don't know. Does the Prophet travel to other dimensions? Yes, Surah Najm, Allah tells you all of the dimensions Rasulullah went and what he saw in the famous journey, Al-Isra al-Mi'raj. The Mi'raj is the transcendence of the Prophet, where he goes from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. And now the Quran, by its own admittance, tells you the Prophet is an interdimensional being that is capable, based on Allah's will, to go all the way up. And so what he sees at the highest level, God says he saw the greatest sign of Allah, or the Lord. Now, in his travel, there's actually an interesting point that the Prophet comes across Sidratul Muntaha. Now, Sidr, people oftentimes think it's a cedar tree, like the Lebanese flag. He saw some sort of cedar tree. In English, it's been translated as the lot tree. It's like this gigantic tree. And this tree, actually, we make mention about this tree in Dua Nudba. There's 3 mentions of a tree. And it talks about how Prophet Muhammad and Imam Ali's light is from the same tree in heaven. Now, you can also see references to this in that movie, Avatar, not the anime, the one with the little blue things, the Navi. You could see their entire life form was guided by this tree, this gigantic tree. And this tree is known as the tree of souls. Basically, all life is attached to this tree that guides the planet, and this tree also guides the people. They have like some sort of worship towards it. And also in mystical Judaism, the Kabbalah, I don't know if you know about that sect, there's a sect of Judaism called the Kabbalah, and there's multiple subsects of that. They believe that everything is energy, and it is divided into 10 different things called the Sephiroth, or any Final Fantasy fans here? Final Fantasy 7? Sephiroth, the main villain in that, is actually in reference to basically all the energies coming together and becoming that evil thing, but he's not evil. So Sephiroth in the Hebrew language is referring to these 10 energy points. At the bottom is something called Malachut or Malchut. And Donald Trump has this Sephiroth in his office. So he has Kabbalistic teachers, and all people, politicians and stuff, somehow have linkage to the Kabbal. I don't know why. Take note of this. Why do powerful people care about this hocus pocus stuff? I'll leave that to your imagination. But again, at the bottom, there's this thing called Malachut. It's the tree of life. You know, Timberland, the shoes you wear? Yeah, that's a tree of life. Yeah. The tree of life is basically for them the tree of immortality. So in their belief, they believe in 2 trees. The first tree was Adam's tree that he wasn't supposed to eat from. That was the tree of knowledge. The one that they want to get to that they haven't is the tree of immortality. That's the one that they really want. Now, I believe in the biblical tradition, what happens is God says, don't eat from this tree, eat from all the other trees in Genesis and the Torah as well. And Shaitan and Adam says, why? God says, you'll die. And then Shaitan comes to Adam and says, no, God lied. You'll actually become knowledgeable. And so Adam eats it, and then he becomes knowledgeable that he has private parts of his body, so he runs behind a bush in heaven. It's very comical when you read the Torah and the Genesis when it comes out. But what happens here, God comes, fi fi fo fam, in heaven, astaghfirullah, and he goes, Adam, why are you behind the bush? And he says, oh, because I have parts that I need to cover. And then God says, well, how did you know? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from? And Adam says, she made me do it. So he points to Eve. And then God says, because you made me do it, because you made him do it, I'm going to punish women with pregnancy and childbirth. And then they say Islam is sexist. This is in the Torah. So what happens here, again, the tree of knowledge, this is the story. Now what happens is the Cabal, the subsect that actually likes Lucifer, believe it or not, there's Jews that love Lucifer. Not all of them, the subsect of the Cabal, they say God lied. Adam didn't die. And Satan told the truth. And Satan is going to take us to Malachut. So first we got knowledge, and the next step is the tree of immortality. Sidrat al-Muntaha, it's in the Quran. Rasulullah goes to his Mi'raj, he sees this tree, this lot tree, this giant tree, and Allah shows it to him. I'll leave it for your imagination what that could have been. But this is a little bit of insight that there is a tree in other dimensions, and we're not the only religion that's concerned with it. There's a lot of inferences to this tree of life or tree of immortality, or the tree that bared the Holy Prophet and Imam Ali's light as well. Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, next question. When we die, do we leave this three-dimensional world and move to a higher dimensional world? If so, what do we end up being? Do we end up coexisting with the jinns and the angels, or are we sent back to earth as reincarnated until we have completed burning our karmas? No, that is not the reincarnation is not an Islamic principle. There is a subsect of Alawis called the Nusayris. They believe in reincarnation. We're not them. By the way, that comes from very strange sources as well. So I've actually delved deep into Nusayris. Basically, there was a companion of the 10th and 11th Imam by the name of Muhammad ibn Nusayr, and he deified the Imams, and he believed in the Jew, Abdullah ibn Saba, was one of the only people that realized he was onto something, that Imam Ali was God. And they have all of these different narrations trying to say Imams are God. If Sunnis come and tell you Shias believe Imams are gods, they're not talking about you. They're talking about the subsect of Nusayris from Muhammad ibn Nusayr that came out. That reincarnation is in there, but there's a lot to be said about that entire belief. If you want more information, come to me. I'll tell you more about them. They're very interesting. And so what happens when we die? Okay. The only way I could tell you is if I die and come back. I haven't died yet. But if we are speaking in theory, you already exist in other dimensions, but you only perceive this one. Everything you do in terms of good deed or bad deed not only has an impact here, it has an inverse impact in the other dimensions. If you guys have studied Sufis or mystics, you'll notice they're very strict on themselves. Monks, mystics, Irfanis, even Ayatollah Bahjat was extremely, of all the Maraja, Ayatollah Bahjat was the strictest. If you read his Risala, he was the strictest. Everything was precaution. If you sneeze the wrong way, go do ghusl. You don't know what it meant. So Ayatollah Bahjat was very, very, very strict. And the reason why, and I didn't realize this, people think if you're very strict, you're going to get special powers. That's not how you get special powers. Being strict is basically the foundation to, when you open your mind to different realities, you will not get traumatized by what all your deeds have done in that world. So, every time you sin, your body or your physical or your soul emits an electromagnetic resonation that attracts certain things in other world around you. If that doesn't make sense, I'll say it again. When you sin, like for example, if you go in your bedroom and you watch the wrong videos, if you do that, sometimes, your heart rate goes up and you feel like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. Sometimes you might even feel something's there with you. What you're attracting to yourself is the deed that takes you away from Allah, and hence, when you do that, you open yourself up to all kinds of spiritual nightmares around you that maybe your physical eyes do not see. Why do the mystics live a very strict life? I took courses to understand why they do that. And they said, if you open your third eye, and I didn't do that, I didn't open, it's closed, I swear. I can't read anyone's minds or anything, and I can't see anyone in the room other than you guys. If you do that, they say themselves, the teachers, and they say you always have to have a teacher, and you're not supposed to tell anyone you're doing what you're doing. The first rule of Fight Club is there's no Fight Club. So what happens here is if you open your eye and you're not strict, and you're just sinning and whatever, make a couple of istighfars here and there, but you're a pretty flamboyant person that does whatever he wants. When you open your third eye, that gives you a 99% chance that you will go mentally ill. Because you will not be prepared for your surroundings. That is why mystics are strict. They do not gossip, they do not steal, they don't even look at you in the eye, if you notice. People who have trouble looking you in the eye are very strict on themselves. They don't want to see something they don't have to. They don't want to judge you. They don't even want to have a mental sin. In our religion, if you mentally sin, it's not until you do it, you're okay. They don't even want to have the thought of doing a sin. That's how strict they are on themselves. So that would then mean that we exist in other dimensions, despite the fact that we only see this one. This is what Imam Ali says, when Imam Ali alayhi salam says, when you die, you wake up. Because all of my physical sensory neurons are gone. They die with me. My brain is not working anymore. You see? Everybody has thoughts in their heads. Have you ever paid attention? Well, you have all this memory in your brain. What makes you think about that specific thing you're thinking about? The scientists have even concluded this. What makes you think about that which you're thinking about? You have thousands of memory in your head, but you've picked one. Why are you thinking about it? Who's thinking about it? What's making you think about it? That is what they call your awareness. Your awareness moves throughout your brain. Now, once your brain dies and your heart stops pumping oxygen to it and you experience a physical death, your awareness is now left with, what's it left with? There's no more 3 dimensions anymore, is there? And you're left with your deeds. This is also the concept of barzakh. Barzakh oftentimes is called the waiting room between heaven and hell. Okay? Why does Allah in the Quran say Fir'aun is burning from night till morning? In the Quran. And Pharaoh burns from morning till night. Why? Well, he's not in hell, because hell doesn't come until the day of judgment. And there's no night and day. That's his barzakh that he reproduced based on his actions of claiming to be a god, then transgressing against a prophet of God. So he now created that reality that he is suffering in. That is what would be considered what happens when you die. Your awareness is left with all of your actions. And you have to sit with that until the day of judgment where your final sentence is given. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, alhamdulillah. And let's see what else. And directly to follow up, are we human beings theoretically okay, to follow up on that question, are we as human beings capable of accessing the third eye and transcend as interdimensional beings? Okay. Why does anyone want to open a third eye to begin with? Right? You must be really bored. I'm just kidding. Don't do it if you don't want to. But if you do it, good luck, because I haven't done it and I'm too scared to do it. But is it possible? Yes. Have people done it? Yes. If you look at certain works, you can tell certain people had it. You can tell the mystic from the non-mystic. You can tell the esoteric from the non-esoteric. You can tell that this guy was enlightened because he sees more and someone is just saying it because he thinks he knows better. If you look at, for example, Ibn Kathir, who tries to do tafsir of the Quran, this is an imbecile. I'm very sorry, he's an imbecile. He forgot everything and he's like, this is what I think. Well, who are you? I'm the student of Ibn Taymiyyah. Well, who the heck is Ibn Taymiyyah? What are you? Get out of here. He is Shaykh al-Islam. Yes, I am Shaykh al-Islam too. And I say it is not what Ibn Kathir says. You just give yourself titles while you're at it, right? Who made Ibn Taymiyyah Shaykh al-Islam? I'm Shaykh al-Islam and Ibn Kathir is wrong. Don't listen to any of his tafasir. So that's that. Do we have to open our third eye? No. Are there people who did it? Yes. If I want to point to a couple of them, for sure, Ayatollah al-Qadhi, I think he's the teacher of Ayatollah Bahjat, if I'm not mistaken. Yes? Okay. He was one of them. Ayatollah Bahjat, we don't know. His students say all kinds of mystical things about him. In my 2 cents worth, he did. Because of his strictness, you can tell. The ones that aren't so strict, then you can tell their third eye was very much closed. They don't care. And you don't have to open it. You don't have to unless you want to. And people who do sacrifice a lot. They sacrifice a lot in their physical life for that enlightenment. If I sin, I don't see the repercussions until either I pass away or the day of judgment. Or I can make istighfar. When they sin, oh boy, do they see it. And the worst thing is that they lose that power because of how much they sin. That's the worst possible fate for them. Or they'll just become so traumatized, they'll just want to close it themselves. God knows best. I don't know beyond this. And forgive me for overstepping if I have. That's about it for these crazy questions. Let's look at the simple ones. Okay. When it comes to Latmiya and Nohas, all I listen to is shur. For those that don't know what shur is, it means salty. I'm just kidding. No, shur means the fast one. Okay? Some people like that more. Now, what happens is there is someone in the background making extra noise and saying Hussein, Hussein, Hussein. Okay, sometimes it doesn't even sound like Hussein, Hussein, Hussein anymore. It just sounds like beatboxing at that point. What is your opinion on any shur latmiyat, and do you believe some that have lots of beats in them are haram? I can't make rulings to give you that. Whether or not I think it's haram or not is beyond my technical ability. If you feel like it's off, don't listen to it. Do you want me to condemn them? I'm not going to condemn them. That's not my problem. But if you feel like it's off, don't listen. Listen to a calmer one that you can actually hear Hussein, Hussein, Hussein. Because the dhikr of Imam Hussein is important. But if it sounds like, yeah, don't do it. Just don't listen to it. Because now you're thinking you're listening to music and you're replacing whatever Snoop Dogg with this. Okay, so this sister here is, I could tell it's a sister because the handwriting is very nice. Don't expose me. So she has something called waswas. And this is a very common phenomenon where someone becomes almost OCD about how they practice. I've actually met a few people, and it's alarming when you see it. The person does wudu like 10, 20 times because he thinks he did wudu wrong the first time. He does his salat over and over again, which in itself is incorrect. You can't start a prayer, cut yourself off, and start over. When you start salat, you finish it. Okay? Even if you remember, oh, I didn't have wudu, finish it. Don't walk away in the middle of salat. You say Allahu Akbar, you've commenced. Finish it. If you made a niyyah to do dhuhr salat, just finish at 2 rakats and go do your wudu or whatever. These types of people start their salat, oh, I said Surah Fatiha wrong, let me start again. Allahu Akbar. You can't do that. Secondly is, they get, this person is saying, I start thinking if I did only 2 or 3 rakats, I know I read the surah in the second rakat or something like that, and my anxiety would make me feel something terrible would happen, or my salah would not be accepted. Okay. This is actually a condition. This is not even funny. Okay, I don't know how it comes up. I'm not a psychologist. But there are remedies that you can do if you have this level of waswas, or waswas, yeah, we say in Farsi, waswas, right? It's actually also a form of shaitan messing with your mind, right? So some people say evil eye, some people say, so waswas is actually a side effect of shaitan just wanting to mess with someone who's vulnerable enough. So first of all, if you have shek on your rakat, there's actually mores that when you press your forehead on it, it tells you which rakat you are. Invest in it. It's on Amazon, $5, $3. Buy one of those. Start there. Secondly, you don't restart salat if you think you made a mistake. Sahu, if you make a mistake, sahwan, there's easy ways to fix it, depending on which salat. Sajdat al-sahu. You know, Hajj Boston has probably gone over this. You guys have probably heard this. But if you want me to do it, I'll show you how to do it. It's not very difficult. After the prayer is done, and you say, oh, I can't remember if I did 3, 4, or 5 rakats. I don't know what I did. Go into sajda. Finish your durood, your salawat, everything. Bismillah wa billah, assalamu alayka ayyuha nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Come up from sajda. Go back to sajda. Say the same thing. Bismillah wa billah, assalamu alayka ayyuha nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Come up and say the shahada. Alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's all you have to do to fix your doubt. Don't redo it over and spend hours on your prayer mat. That's not what salat is there for. Salat is not there to give you anxiety. It is a prescribed action that is there to keep you away from sin and corruption. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't think Allah is worried that a drop of your wudu water fell on your sock before you made it to your... Don't think like this. In fact, Islam is quite the contrary. For example, doubt can never negate uncertainty in Islam. Did you know that? So if someone says this meat is halal, that person said it certainly, you don't have the right to go further than that. That's on them. Some people are meticulous. Well, how do I know which farm it was on? Islam says that's enough, buddy. Just calm down. Relax. Relax. You're not going to hell. You're not. If it was haram, the guy made this saying, you didn't know. Allah knows that you didn't know. You didn't have intention of eating haram, did you? The intention is key. Or, for example, if you made wudu, people do this a lot. You made wudu and you remember you made wudu, but you can't remember if you used the bathroom in the last 3 hours. Do you still have your wudu, or do you go make another wudu because you're not sure? You keep the wudu because you can't remember. That's a doubt, but you certainly made the wudu. You see, Islam functions on this. If you can't remember something or you're not sure, it's fine. Leave it. If you finish your salat and you sent your salams right away, and then you're like, oh, how many did I just pray? Even then, Ahkam says, you're good. You don't even have to do sajdat al-sahu. Just leave it. Because you got all the way to the end and then you remember. So whoever is suffering from this, I'm really sorry you have to go through this. Get the turba that you put your head down and tells you which rakat you're on. But take it easy on yourself. You're not going to go to hell, and your salat will be accepted as long as you care enough about making the salat. That's what's most important. All right, let's see. Okay. Are there any questions anyone wants to ask outside of these? Music, of course. It can't be a Q&A unless someone asks about music, right? I have a simple answer. The music you like is haram. The music you don't like, listen to it as much as you like. How's that? Mozart and Beethoven all day. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
It's a little scientific and maybe
Yes, go ahead.
not a lot people talk about. Maybe people are aware of it, but kind of, because it's so technical, people don't really talk about. But I'm intrigued, and if you don't answer it or give me a reference, that's fine.
Hmm.
So Einstein has this equation, E is equal to mc squared.
Yeah.
And when he went around trying to find out if this is truly applicable in a real life situation, he said that when Prophet went on Miraj, he was able to do, because he went only for a short time and came back, right? So there is this out there. I mean, I don't know how far it's true and how far it's logical, because we can never experience it.
Yeah.
That, but could there be some truth to that based on the Islamic,
Yeah.
scientific, but Islamic part?
Yeah. So the question was regarding the theory of relativity by Ayatollah Einstein. Astaghfirullah. So I don't know about whether or not Einstein said the Mi'raj. I don't know if he actually, does anyone know if Einstein actually said that? Because there's a lot of things that are attributed to him that aren't. It's attributed to him. I don't know about that part. But the theory of relativity states, basically he came up with this theory at a time where science realized how limited it was. Because when they would look at light, they couldn't tell if this was a particle or a wave. It would keep changing. Like, what is this? It's like bipolar. It just goes from being a particle to a wave. We can't tell. Energy is so limited. We can't, no matter how much we look at these photons, it doesn't make sense. So Einstein used this to say it's both. And then he also came up with this concept of time relative to the speed of light, right? And he came up with the concept to say time works differently when you are moving at the speed of light, right? So that's what he basically came up with. Everything is relative depending on the nature of that thing that's traveling through space and matter. So the closer you are to the speed of light, the less time has effect on you. So if you want to stop aging, move at the speed of light. You'll stop aging because time won't work. Now, the Prophet transcending to Mi'raj, if he took on this light, right, or he went towards the light in some sort of speed or so whatever, we don't know, we weren't there, that would make sense because he was back and forth in a short amount of time. But he transcended the seven heavens, he saw Sidrat al-Muntaha, he saw the greatest sign of God, and he came back. Okay? We don't know how long that took. We weren't there, we weren't timing him. If Einstein's theory is right, which we still is a theory, we're shooting darts in the dark. Imam Mehdi, when he comes, he'll unravel layers of science that we have yet to scratch. So we're only two. They say there's like 26, 27 layers of science that Imam Mehdi will teach us. We've only got to two. You think the iPhone is a crazy thing. So if it is true, then if the Prophet was traveling with light, then it would make sense. But again, there's a lot of I don't knows and I can't be certain. But the interesting thing is that Einstein came across this theory like at a time where scientists were scratching their head. And it comes back to light. And God describes himself, Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard. God is the light that illuminates the heavens and the earth. Right? So the faster you are to light, the less time has effect on you. And so it could be a form of transcendence above time into another dimension. You see? So that's all we can say, or I can say. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that. I'm not a physicist, or actually.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about today you talked about the Saqalain.
Hadi Thaqalain.
The progeny. So when Prophet was saying it, how did the people there perceive about the kitab? I mean, there was no kitab, right? There was no books.
Yeah.
So we said it is decree. Allah. So how did the companions perceive what he's saying?
Very good question. Very good question. So yes, so what happens is we have this narration with over 110 scribes that he's saying this to people. And as time went on, people started to say it was a book. right? And how many of us thought the book was available until I said otherwise? Because there's actually no concrete proof the book was there. The Khalifa struggled with this. So it's very much so that Kitab Allah lost meaning probably within the decade after the Prophet's death. So they very much knew what Kitab Allah meant. They knew that it was the decree of Allah and it was in reference to Imam Ali's authority. If you wanted to say it was the Quran itself, then Imam Ali actually presented the Quran 3 days after the Prophet's burial, to which they rejected it. This is found in a book, one of the earliest Shia books of tradition, Basair al-Darajat. In one of the chapters, it's about the Ahlul Bayt and the relationship to Kitab Allah. It tells you the story about Imam Ali showing his compilation of the Quran, his Mus'haf of Ali. And so, whether or not you believe Imam Ali had the decree of Allah or the actual book of Allah, the Prophet wanted to make sure one thing: I'm not giving it to you unless you go to the door of Ali. And they didn't have that, and out of sheer stubbornness, they struggled for about 13, 14 years after the Prophet's death, until Uthman's council was able to come up with something. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes?
Okay, so there's this app, it's like on the App Store, and when you scan certain items, it tells you if it's halal or haram. I want to know if this app is accurate.
You asked that question, didn't you? Oh, no. Okay.
I was told from somebody else that they wanted me to ask what it is.
Oh, brave.
I'm curious as well, because I personally don't believe in it, because I was just like, why would you believe in an app to see whether something's halal or haram? Like,
Hold on. So you scan like a barcode on it, and it...
and it tells you if it's halal, like when you scan like chips or like a certain food item, it tells you if it's halal or haram. And I want to know if
Whoa, what's happening, man? Just eat the chips, you know? It's... Ask questions later. Nah, I'm teasing. What was it? The ingredients come up? Okay. Yeah, so that's reliable in the sense that they have access to the ingredients. Now, the way the app is programmed that tells you halal or haram, it's running a validation, right? To say, if this ingredient exists, I will categorize it as haram. So if that app thinks all types of gelatin are haram, right? Because usually it doesn't say beef or vegetable gelatin. It'll just say gelatin. It will tell you this is haram. Now, depending on who the creator of the app is and how hypersensitive they are to certain things, like most cheese is declared haram by certain people because it has something called rennet. Okay? If that is in Cheetos or Doritos, hey, by the way, whoever's doing taqleed of Sayyid Sistani, no Doritos or Cheetos for you. And Fadlalla's passed away, so good. So yeah, so it depends. So that reliability depends on who is running the validations. Did I say something wrong? Look at just the app causes this much topic of discussion. I say Imam Ali, everyone's quiet. An app about Cheetos has everyone upset. So again, it depends who's doing the law behind this. And by the way, we believe certain types of shellfish are not allowed, but the respected brothers of Ahlul Sunnah believe everything from the sea is allowed. So octopus, calamari, squid, all that, we don't eat that, right? They believe catfish is okay. So if it does possess those ingredients and this app is created by someone following Hanafi law, then you could very much be misled. So don't use your app. Just read the ingredients with your eyes, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So we have this store here, it's called Restaurant Depot. And
Yeah.
at the store, it's like, it sells like chicken and like chicken nuggets and stuff, but it says halal on it. But when you scan it with the app, it says haram.
Throw your app out. Just uninstall the app. Stop using an app. If it says halal, then it's halal. What's going on with the youth these days? I swear, this OCD, like, if it's halal on the package, it's not on you, and it's not on the app, it's halal. Yeah, but they get it from other places, from farms that are halal. Is it a Restaurant Depot app? Is it a Restaurant Depot package? Does it say Restaurant Depot halal? Or does it say like Creekstone or whatever? Okay. So it says halal again. If they lie, it's on them. So, okay, khalas. Why are you scanning it on an app then? So the Restaurant Depot version of the same product is haram? Because it's not from a Muslim store? I feel a conspiracy here, you know? Don't make it hard on yourselves. Brothers and sisters, what are you doing? Please. Allah. We have to delete this part of the recording before I get into trouble. Are there any other questions apart from this? Yes. 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 That is his rulings, yes. Huh? Yes. Ugh. If only you knew what you did in the fourth and fifth dimension. Okay, but the original, was it original? Or guacamole? Which one? Yeah, Frito-Lay cheese. Okay, so the cheese is the problem, not the brand. So if you have the cheese, nacho cheese, Cheetos, and you follow Sayyid Sistani, according to him, the way they use the product has to do with, I believe, animal intestines, the rennet.
Yeah, but I was reading somewhere that 90% of commercial rennet now
Yeah.
is synthetic. It's not even.
Oh. Okay, so did you hear that? Okay, so 90% of rennet is now synthetic and not animal-based, so it's 90% halal. Good luck with the 10%. Eat your Doritos. I've made a fatwa. If the Doritos are haram on the Day of Judgment, it's... We have other Maraja, you know, if it's over Doritos. If that's enough for you to change my... Forget all his other rulings, just Doritos. Nail polish and Doritos. Yes. Oh, yes, of course. I have an answer for you. If you like the I'm just kidding. The next question. Oh, the sisters are at it. I have to. Okay, well, hold on. I'll come to your question. Yes, what's the second question? No. Yes. It's not haram for me. I don't do taqleed of Sayyid Sistani. I can have as much Doritos as I want. So I'll just try not to have it in front of you. You know what? We have some Iraqi brothers. They told me they can import it from Karbala, from the Holy Land. So you can have Doritos if it's really breaking your heart. Anyways, let's end the subject here. I can't believe Doritos are so... All right. Are tattoos allowed in Islam? Who says yes? Who says no? There isn't a single marja that rules it haram. But, huh? What? It's zina. Your sister's in. Okay. There is no fatwa that says you are forbidden to get it. But I want to give you the words of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, right? He is the ultimate marja, isn't he? He says, if you dress and behave like you are from a tribe, then you are from that tribe. If you want to be from the tribe of Imam Sadiq, nobody had tattoos in his tribe. Right? Nobody had tattoos around Imam Ali as followers of Imam. If you want to be from them, listen to the words of them. If you want to be like everyone else and be part of their tribe, there's nothing stopping you, brother. Up to you whose tribe you want to be part of. You know, Ayatollah Mirza Shirazi was once leading Salat. And I don't do taqleed of the Shirazi, so don't label me with that. And someone came up to him after he finished the Salat, and he said, I have a really important question to ask you. And he says, yes. He says, what was the name of Prophet Musa's mother? Some guy came to the Ayatollah after he finished praying, and the Ayatollah looked at him like this, and he did sajda. And then he came back and looked at him. And the man said, why did you just do sajda? And Ayatollah Mirza says, because all the problems in the world have resolved that you come to me with this question. He wants to know if you, Habibi, don't get your ears pierced. You're very halu. Don't do this to you. What are you? Don't put holes in your body unnecessarily, you know? Men don't do that, brother. Yes. Yes.
So let's say there's an individual who says all their prayers and doesn't have any tattoos and eats haram. Doesn't eat haram and everything. But in their time, they're always judging others.
Yes.
And they're always, instead of like looking at the beauty of the world, they look at the negative side of the world. Then you have this person on the other side who has a tattoo, who eats haram, who does a lot of, but they don't do wrong to anyone else. And they're a good soul. They speak good about others. They don't lie. They don't treat anybody wrong. Who is more awesome?
Are you asking me?
What are your thoughts?
They said I'm the speaker and I'm not the god of the majlis.
Actually, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because everyone is like trapped in a world which really doesn't matter. Not heaven, none of that will encounter from a tattoo or eating burritos.
Yes.
What matters is the person's character. And
Yes.
I think like
Akhlaq.
the entire 10 days of Hajj has been so beautiful, and we have been presently like speaking about the akhlaq. We're like worrying about things which don't matter. What
Yes.
akhlaq is what's important.
His question is, what does Islam say about judging others?
Yes. So there's numerous hadith indicating that akhlaq is the invitation of the believer. It's the representation of the Islam. So people say, oh, hijabis are the flag bearer. No. Hijabis are not the flag bearer of Islam. Akhlaq is the flag bearer of Islam. A Jewish boy once came to the Prophet and said, I converted to Islam, but my mother is still a Jew. What should I do with her? He said, you treat her now with even more respect now that you're a Muslim. Yes? So there's a reason why communities think the way they do, unfortunately. And the reason why I say unfortunately is because Imam Hussein literally let a guy who's never prayed in his life fight with him. Wahab converted to Islam after meeting Imam Hussein. He didn't know how to pray. He didn't know how he was doing wudu. He was just watching and just blending in. He didn't know what he was doing. But the niyat and his recognition of Imam Hussein as a divine guide is what rescued him. You see, 1,000 salats and 1,000 fasts and the most modest clothing can still take you away from Allah. Why is it that communities focus on the actions of others instead of the character? Why is it that we're so obsessed with one another's behavior? Did you see who took off her hijab? Did you see who got divorced? Did you see who did this? Did you see who got robbed? Imam Ali says, if you see someone doing wrong one day, don't look at them with the same eyes the next day, because how do you know they haven't repented? You see, Allah forgive, but you don't forgive. And there's a reason for this. You see, up until our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, pre-revolution, all Muslims had, they didn't have any type of theological discussions because that had gone down the drain. The Mongols had burned down our libraries. The Enlightenment era of the Muslims was long gone in the early 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. People weren't having discussions about belief. People didn't even know properly what the role of an imam is. I don't know, what do I do with an imam? What's the difference between an imam and a prophet? They didn't have this. So all they had was Islamic law. Pray 5 times a day, fast, don't steal, look a certain way, follow a certain group. That's it. These people, Yazid's army were in the same boat. Yeah? Just follow the Khalifa, pray. You know the story. What makes you different is your belief. What makes you different is your character. How you have intentions behind actions. If you want to gloat with an action, if you want to judge others with an action. Since when did the religion become a bank account to see who has more hasanat than the other? Who dresses nicer than the other? This has plagued our communities for a long time. We have to get real, especially with the end of times coming. Don't assassinate one another in your heads. I'm better than them. The minute you think I'm better than them, Shaitan is like, I got you there. Who said I'm better than him first? I'm better than Adam. And then he gives you a reason. He gives you an alibi. I'm from flame, he's clay. She took her hijab off, I still have it on, I'm better. I still pray, he stopped. Oh yeah, I got the goods, I know where I'm going. Allahu Akbar. What has happened to you? What has polluted your soul? Did the imams, when a non-believer come talk to them, look at them like this? When the enemies of the imam approached them, one time Imam Hassan in Medina was walking, someone came and swore at him. He says, oh man, has the weather been bothering you? Are you new to this town? Do you need a place to stay? Has someone upset you earlier? Has someone robbed you of your right? Why did you speak like this? And the man becomes ashamed. You swallow your pride. Your prophet was the one that a woman used to throw trash on his head, and he used to look and just laugh. Oh, it's okay. And then when she's sick, the prophet, were you human? Hey, you didn't throw trash on my head today. Is everything okay? Well, this is morality. This is morality. Not who looks the part. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says one line that makes you scared. He says, do not look at the bowing and the fasting of a believer. But he prays. Khalas, he's ma'soom. I'm not saying don't pray. Hey, prayer is for you, don't forget. He says, look at their actions when they're done. He prays and he does gossip. Psychology says, if he's doing gossip about someone with you, he's probably doing it about you with someone else too. Don't sit with them. Don't lower your guard with someone who opens their mouth about others. Imam Sadiq says, don't look at the way they bow and the way they fast. Look at their character outside of that. Don't be fooled. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Yes. You have a question, or you're just thinking? Oh. Well, it was a pleasure seeing you, Ammar. Until next time. Any other questions? You guys tired? All right. What's for dinner? What's for dinner? Get your app out. Thank you, everyone, again for this privilege to be among you. May Allah bless all of you. And inshallah, sometime soon we will see each other again. And inshallah, all of us will be in the light of Imam al-Mahdi ajrallahu ta'ala faraja. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
قصيرة حجي. اي صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت ببنائك وناخت برحلك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، وسيدتي ومولاتي أم المصائب الحوراء زينب ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنوا أرضك طوعا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات أمواتكم وأمواتنا، وإلى أرواح جميع أموات أهل منفس نهدي لهم ثواب الفاتحة مع الصلوات. بس نوقف الله. بسم الله.